The 1920s was an interesting time period in American history. It was right after World War I had just ended, and it was full of new changes all over the country. There are many viewpoints as to whether the 1920s was a terrific or terrible time in American history, because of all of the pros and cons all over the country. Many people see it as terrific because there were things such as advancements in technology, and the country was thriving all around. However, there was also things such as organized crime and a crashing economy. Many people see the country as bad because it's organized groups like the KKK and the Red Scare in times like the Prohibition era. However, there was also amazing things in the 1920s such as women's rights, advancements in transportation, and sports and entertainment. These advancements still influence us to this day. The 1920s was a terrific time in American history. First, I'm going to start off by telling you about the terrible times in in the 1920s, such as the KKK. The KKK falls into the terrible column, weighing in at 190 pounds. The KKK was rebirthed by former Methodist preacher in Atlanta, Georgia in 1915. The Ku Klux Klan started out as a way to lash out against change in the country. They ran off of hate and employed violence and terror all over the country. They targeted Jews, Catholics, African Americans, and immigrants. They wore masks often to hide their identities while committing crimes. Another ruler was David Stephan, who ruled in Indiana. Moving on to the Red Scare. The Red Scare also falls into the terrible column, weighing in at 110 pounds. The Red Scare happened from 1917 to 1920. The Red Scare started as a fear of suspected communist and radical thoughts, plotting a revolution against the United States of America. Fear and suspicion of new change, including immigrants, socialists, and communists all over the country, also sparked the Red Scare. They often protested and used crime to get their point across. The Red Scare followed the Bolshevik Russian Revolution of 1917 and the effects of World War I. Niccolò Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti were two Italian men who held one of the most controversial court cases in American history. By 1920s, the peak of the Red Scare had ended. Another time in the 1920s terrible column is the Prohibition era, from 1920 to 1933. The Prohibition era weighs in at 100 pounds in the terrible column. During the Prohibition era, the manufacture and sale of alcohol was banned due to the 18th Amendment, which was ratified on January 16, 1919. The 18th Amendment was passed to limit abusive husbands and the overuse of alcohol. It led to organized crime, increased violence, unregulated and untaxed alcohol, and massive political corruption. The 18th Amendment was meant to solve problems, however, it only created more. The 21st Amendment was passed on February 20th, 1933, which overread the 18th Amendment. Now, moving on to the terrific times in American history, such as sports. Sports falls into the terrific column, weighing in at 180 pounds. After World War I, leisure time increased due to industrialization and an increase in machinery, leaving Americans with more time for leisure and play. Stadiums were built, organized sports were formed, and famous players such as Babe Ruth, Jack Dempsey, and Bobby Jones became even more famous than Hollywood stars and actresses at the time. There were even famous women athletes such as Helen Wills. The most famous and first organized sports were basketball and boxing. These advancements in sports still influence us to this day as we still play these sports and many more. Another thing in the terrific column would be transportation, weighing in at 190 pounds. Henry Ford created the first automobile. He opened the Motor Ford Company on September 27, 1908. His first automobile was the Model T, which was the first automobile to be created on an assembly line. It was made out of vanadium steel, which was extremely strong and had strong selling points, which made it manufactured easier and cheaper. This led to employees to be able to be paid even more, which led to an easier credit installment plans, which led to a rise of consumerism. This advancement in transportation still influences us to this day. Also in the terrific column is women's rights. Women's rights falls into the terrific column at 250 pounds. The amount of working women increased to 25% all over the country because of World War I. Women attending universities and colleges rose to 10% of women all over the country. Roles of women included factory workers, secretaries, and sales clerks. The 19th Amendment was ratified on August 18, 1920. This gave women the right to vote. Flappers also represented women's rights. The Roaring Twenties lasted from 1920 to 1929. These advancements still influence us to this day. As you can see, the 1920s was a terrific time in American history. You can stop it.